How's it going, guys? So we got the hard mode Wrath of the Machine raid done on Tuesday night, hashtag world's first 100,000, and as well as getting an aneurysm, I was also lucky enough to get every single hard mode weapon drop, which is very uncharacteristically lucky for me in this game, and pretty cool, and this ship, which really isn't cool, as you shall see. But if you hadn't had the opportunity to do the raid on hard yet, or didn't get the weapon drops you wanted, I thought while I have the opportunity I'll do a little overview of what they look like. Then potentially you can decide they all look garbage and cross your fingers for armour instead, or vice versa. And obviously all these weapons drop with the exact same rolls on them, so they'll always look like this. So dropping from the hard mode are the hand cannon, the pulse rifle, the sidearm, the sniper rifle, and the machine gun. Gonna kick it off with the hand cannon, the Fever and Remedy. As usual, the Wrath weapons are all variants or upgrades in inverted commas of already existing weapons. In this case it's the Judith D. If you're not familiar with what the Judith D is, it's the gunsmith hand cannon. Seldom used because it's kind of eclipsed in Crucible by the IS Luna and the Palindrome these days at this point. Obviously has the standard Whirlwind perk for more agility and damage against Fallen, the latter being fairly pointless in my opinion, since hand cannons are pretty much bottom tier for PvE weapons, and in the raid especially most people are going to be using something like the Outbreak for more DPS, so I tend to look at hand cannons in the PvP context. Fairly standard first tree perks, but they do have a significant sway on stability versus range. Now, for hand cannons you're generally advised to pick range for more aim assist and kind of less chance of the ghost bullets, which hand cannons obviously have an issue with. But in this case it dropped the stability a little bit low for me, and you can make that range up elsewhere, which we'll get to. But it's obviously a bit of a matter of personal preference. But the first main role is reactive reload, which is pretty interesting for a hand cannon of this archetype. Next, perk tree is basically a choice between range, stability and reload speed. Again, range is the most advised, so I've picked that myself. And lastly is basically a slightly less efficient version of Battle Runner, increased movement speed after reloading after taking a kill. And it is noticeable, it's a significant boost to speed. You will almost walk at sprinting pace, it's pretty crazy, for about 5 seconds or so. What that means is you kind of have a fight or flight option with this gun. You take a kill, you reload, and then you can either engage the next enemy with more damage, or we can run away faster if you're too weak. The interesting thing about reactive reload in this case is that this hand cannon is a high damage archetype. It does 86 to the head and 56 to the body. With reactive reload active, every bullet becomes a luck in the chamber shot and will do 114 to the head. So after a kill and a reload you will be able to two-shot opponents with any bullets in your clip for a short time, so potentially this could do some serious work in Crucible. If you are a hand cannon user you could put down quite a few people very easily with reactive reload active, and that stability stat actually looks a lot lower than the gun feels. I found it's a lot easier to shoot than I anticipated looking at that stability. So if you like hand cannons in PvP, I would say this is one to definitely hold on to. Now let's take a quick look at the pulse rifle. I won't spend too long on this one, as honestly I'm not seeing much merit to it in PvE or PvP. Whirlwind perk again, obviously. First tree perks again, making differences to range and stability. Obviously choose whatever you're most comfortable with. First perk is full auto, which already kind of shouts out that there's not much going for this gun. Most of the others have kind of complementary perks that kind of influence each other somehow or linked, often based around reloading. This one not so much. Second tree is fairly decent. Again you can throw on kind of reload speed or stability, or in this case high caliber rounds, and this is useful for PvP obviously if you want to inflict more flinch on people. Good for combating snipers. But the handlaid stock will take it up to almost max stability if you kind of want that really steady pulse rifle. The last perk means every fourth burst does bonus damage if the first 3 hit a target. Now in Crucible this is essentially redundant. This pulse rifle is pretty much the weakest archetype for Crucible right now. As pulse rifles go, it's similar to a Red Death, and the problem with that is that the faster firing category, including the Hawksaw, i.e. the most used Crucible weapon, and the Blind Perdition say they kill in the same number of bursts, 3. But they fire a lot faster, and there have been some really good rolled ones on the vendors. The blind perdition drops in really good rolls from trials. And even those in turn can be outshot by the highest fire rate pulse rifles like the Grasp of Malok. So this archetype right here is pretty much left in the dust, and that Sign of 4 perk is pretty useless given that the 4th burst is going to kill anyway if the first 3 have already hit. Now potentially you could get a 3 burst kill and then use that 4th burst to start on a new opponent, but it all seems a little bit situational. A little bit too specific. Kind of, if you want a pulse rifle, you want something which is kind of active in every single kill, which is always going to be helping you out. Not this, if there's a second person there and I haven't reloaded yet, I can do a bit of extra damage with my first burst. There are just better options for PvP pulses at the end of the day. I might be proved wrong, maybe that 4th burst can one-shot people, but I somehow doubt it. PvE wise, arguably it could be useful for doing DPS on a boss if your exotic choice is on your secondary or your heavy. But again, if people want to be doing damage with their primary, they are pretty much going to be using different weapons. They're going to be using an Outbreak Prime or a Bad Juju or something. So maybe at a push you could use this in PvE to do DPS, but otherwise I'm going to say this one's pretty disappointing, and I doubt I'm really going to find a use for it. Let's move on to the secondaries. The Sidearm, nice and simple. Now, you're either a Sidearm guy or you're not, and it's pretty much just Crucible here, let's be honest. First 3 perks actually prove quite important, as we found out. With Smart Drift Control, this cannot kill with 4 shots to the head. We'll leave them on a tiny bit of health. Put on a Field Choke and it just about tips the damage up enough to get that 4 shot. Maybe not on really high armor classes, but it is 50 damage to the head with the Field Choke option on. Second is Reactive Reload, so just like the hand cannon, reload it after a kill and go to town on the next opponent. Secondary is actually very, very nice. You can take extra range, and let's be honest, Sidearms can do with all the range they can get. Speed Reload if you want to aid the 2 main perks that both rely on reloading, but Sidearms do have an awesome reload time anyway, so personally I wouldn't choose this, especially since it nerfs the range as well. And lastly, Quick Draw, which could be a great option if you want to swap between primary and secondary quickly, which is quite likely if you're using a Sidearm. I know that the No Land Beyond Sidearm combo is growing in popularity thanks to Hovey. So that might be a great choice if you kind of get a body shot and want to quickly finish them off with a Sidearm. And lastly is that increased agility. So this is kind of like a miniature version of the hand cannon. Same 2 major roles. And as Sidearms go, I quite like it. Usually I go for the kind of high impact and lower rate of fire ones like the Pigeon or the Iron Wreath. I tend to hit shots a bit more consistently with them, and they kind of seem to take people down a bit more consistently. But this one is pretty fun to rattle away with in Crucible, but it will run out of ammo pretty quickly though, so keep an eye on that. Next is the Sniper, and this one's grown on me somewhat already. It's a variant of the Irene, which let's just say I hated completely. This is of the highest impact archetype. This is like your Event Horizon or your Black Spindle. Now the only archetype that can reliably one-shot some supers, so already a decent option for Crucible play. Similar to exotic snipers, the first tree is a choice of stat modifiers rather than scopes. The scope, I can tell you, isn't that great before you fully upgrade it. Once you do fully upgrade it, it feels very similar in terms of zoom to a short gaze or an ambush. So basically the most popular type of scope. So that's a good thing too. First perk is Spray and Play. So faster reload when you're empty, nothing too special. Secondary is hand loaded, so extra range. But if you're shooting at something that's beyond your sniper's range, then it's probably of no threat to you in the first place, let's be honest. Quick Draw, similar to the Sidearm, although not quite as useful in this case. Faster draw time. And lastly, Injection Mold for a bit of extra stability. I will say this sniper kicks a little more than I would like, and I've gone for the extra stability myself. And then the second roll basically means that if your mag is empty and you reload, you get that Spray and Play fast reload. But you will also be given a 4-bullet magazine. This archetype of sniper generally only gets 3 shots per mag. Think about your Black Spindle, it's only 3 shots to begin with. So this upgrades it to allow you to do a bit more damage before you reload each time. So it's good for kind of repetitive damage in PvE if you're shooting at a boss. You can do 4 shots before you reload, then you get another 4 shots instead of that 3. So it's kind of a lesser black spindle thing going on. Not so useful for Crucible, that perk, where you're unlikely to have that much ammo anyway. But I have tried it in PvP. I'm not too bad of a sniper. I'm not exactly phased, but I did find it pretty easy to hit headshots with it actually. Easier than I thought it would. And obviously the body shot damage is huge on these snipers. They're likely to finish anyone who's taken as little as, I think it's 20 damage. And in the raid I used it for the Zamboni and MEKSIS, and it did pretty good work. So this one is a decent option, either PvP or PvE. I'm definitely a fan of this one. And last but certainly not least is the LMG, which has surprised everyone somewhat. It's a variant of one of the weakest LMGs around, or kind of the one that you sigh every time you get it in a package, or used to get it. The Diluvian, i.e. very high rate of fire and low impact. But the rate of fire on this thing is actually what complements its perks. So standard stat mods in the first tree. First roll is triple tap, so for every 3 precision hits you get a bullet back for free. The second tree allows you to shunt the magazine from 60 to 88 bullets, reload quicker, or more than double your stability. Choose what you will, but bear in mind that the fire rate makes this thing kick like a mule, even with that braced frame on. So gauge how far you're going to be from your target. If your barrel's stuffing a boss really close by, go crazy with the extended mag. If you can get like really close to MEKSIS, just do that. But the last perk is what's interesting, and that's a triple double, and this causes the gun to reload itself from your reserve ammo every time triple tap procs. So now your current magazine is refunding itself and reloading itself simultaneously. Every 3 precision hits reloads 2 bullets, one of which is for free. So you could think of this as the opposite to the super good advice, which refunds bullets for missing. This refunds them for hitting. And my god, does this thing shoot forever. I really should have recorded some footage of it hitting MEKSIS, but you can find that on YouTube already quite readily. I believe other channels have investigated just how much damage this can put in one sitting. And I hear that with extended mag and with 100% crit rate, it is around 1 million damage, which is pretty insane for an LMG, for a single magazine. Definitely try and get your hands on one of these. It will be from the chest that you pick up directly after the Zamboni section. But that's all of them. I hope it was in some way interesting or useful. Oh, the ship. Okay, so check this out. The ship is literally a reskinned version of the very first ship you get in the game. I'm not joking. That's the original there, and that's the raid ship. Yeah, looks like it's made out of solar panels, trash and sadness. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will catch you next video.